That is really something, a free woolly. I'll be... Oh, hi, my friends. Welcome back. I'm excited that you're here. I didn't hear you come in. I appreciate you stopping by. All right, we are here today to start our next book. It is called Ice Monster by David Walliams. Now, throughout the book, I want you to listen to the story because you will have to answer some questions and do some fun activities after. So, all your questions, though, you will have to answer with complete sentences. So, let's see if you listen there. You have to answer your questions with complete sentences, not meow. Ignore the meow. All right, let's get started with David Walliams' The Ice Monster. The Ice Monster by David Walliams, illustrated by Tony Ross. For Alfred, you are always in my heart, Daddy X. We do have some thank yous here. We're not going to take our time reading through those, but go ahead and have a look. Kind of a clever way to give thank yous and to list the people that helped with the book. The year is 1899, and we're in Victorian London. Meet the characters in the story. Elsie is a homeless orphan who lives on the streets of London. Dottie is the cleaning lady at the Natural History Museum. She is as daft as her brushes. Private Thomas is Dottie's boyfriend, the shortest soldier who ever served in the British Army. His fellow soldiers called him Titch. He is now retired and lives at the Royal Hospital, Chelsea, making him a Chelseaer pensioner. Miss Curdle is the nasty old boot who runs Wormley Hall, home for unwanted children. Mr. Clout is the brute of a security guard at the museum, infamous for his hobnailed boots. Commissioner Barker is the fearsome head of the London Metropolitan Police, famous for his tiny moustache. Many years ago, the professor was the top scientist at the museum until one of his experiments went catastrophically wrong. Lady Buckshot is an aristocrat big game hunter. Across Africa, she shoots elephants, giraffes, and lions and brings their bodies back to the museum to be stuffed and put on display. The Admiral is the only sailor to live at the hospital. He was thrown out of the old sailors' home for being drunk and disorderly. The Colonel and the Brigadier are also Chelsea pensioners. The one-eyed Sergeant Major is in charge of everyone and everything that comes in and out of the hospital, and don't you forget it. All the Chelsea pensioners are overseen by the Royal Hospital's formidable matrone. Queen Victoria is the ruler of the British Empire in 1899. She had been on the throne for what was the longest reign in British history, a staggering 62 years. Abdul Karim is always at the Queen's side. He is her handsome young Indian attendant, also known as Munshi. Sir Ray Lancaster is the museum portly director. The sandwich board man roams the streets trying to convince everyone that the end is nigh. The captain is in charge of what was, in 1899, one of the Royal Navy's most modern warships, HMS Argonaut. The Sticky Fingers Gang is a rough and tough band of child robbers who are infamous for being the greatest thieves in London. You have Joseph, Zoe, Nellie, Bella, Freya, Grace, George, Lottie, Asia, Athena, Sanaya, and Rihanna. Raj the First has his own confectionery emporium, or sweet trolley. And last, but certainly not least, is the Ice Monster itself, a woolly mammoth that died 10,000 years ago. The lifeless animal was discovered by Arctic explorers, perfectly preserved in the ice. Here we have a map of London in 1899. You have Buckingham Palace, Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, the Natural History Museum, Westminster Abbey, the Royal Hospital Chelsea, 10 Downing Street, HMS Victory moored on the Thames, Tower Bridge, the Thames River, Wormley Hall, home for unwanted children. Part 1, London, 1899. Chapter 1, Cockroaches for Breakfast. One bleak winter night in the back streets of London, a tiny baby was left on the steps of an orphanage. There was no note, no name, no clue as to who this little person was, just the potato sack in which she was wrapped. As snow fell around her, the Victorian times, it was not uncommon for newborn babies to be abandoned outside orphanages, hospitals, or even the homes of upper-class folk. Their poor, desperate mothers hoped their children would be taken in and given a better life than their birth families could provide. However, it was hard to imagine a worse start in life for this baby than at Wormley Hall, home for unwanted children. 26 orphans lived there, all crammed into a room that should have slept 8, in the absolute most. The children were locked up, starved and beaten. On top of that, they were forced to work day and night. They had to assemble gentlemen's pocket watches from tiny pieces until they went blind. All the children were painfully thin, with filthy rags for clothes. The orphans' faces were black with soot, so all they could see in the gloom were their hopeful little eyes. Agatha, Bessie, Clarence, Dorothy, Elsie, Felix, Gertrude, Humphrey, Iris, Joe, Kenneth, Lillian, Violet, Ursula, Theodore, Stanley, Rupert, Queenie, Percival, Olive, Nancy, Mabel, Wilf, Alexandra, Yorick, Zachary. When a new baby arrived at the orphanage, all the older children would come up with a name for them. They liked to work their way through the alphabet so their names would be as different as possible. The night the baby in the potato sack was left on the steps, they had reached E. If she had been found the day before, she might have been called Doris. A day later, she could have been a Frank. Instead, she was named Elsie. This prison of an orphanage was run by an evil old boot named Miss Curdle. Her face was unusually fixed in a permanent grimace, and she was covered from head to toe in warts. She had so many warts that even her warts had warts. The only thing that made her smile was the sound of children sobbing. Miss Curdle would scoff all the food donated for the orphans, so the children in her care had to eat cockroaches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. "Creepy crawlies are good for you," she would chuckle. If any of the orphans spoke after, "Candles out," she would stuff one of her pus-sodden old stockings in their mouth. They would have to keep it in there for a week. "That'll keep you quiet, windy wallet." When the children were sleeping on the stone-cold floor, she would put wiggle worms down their backs of their shirts, so they would wake up screaming, "Ah! Hornswoggler!" Miss Curdle would sneeze over the orphans, and her nose on their hair. "Gone, guzzler." A weekly bath involved dunking the orphans one by one into a barrel of maggots. The maggots would nibble off the dirt. "The maggots will nibble off the dirt, you muck snipes," Miss Curdle would snigger. To dry off afterwards, she would peg the children to the washing line by their ears. Twing! Once, when Elsie was found with a pet rat in her pocket that she had befriended, Miss Curdle used it as a ball in a game of cricket. Thud! Eek! Whiz! Hurrat! If she felt one of the orphans had given her a funny look, Miss Curdle would poke them in the eye with her dirty, stubby finger. "Ouch! Take that, gib-face!" As a special treat at Christmas, the orphans would line up for their present, a whack on the bottom, with the bumper book of carols. "Bash! Merry Christmas, child!" Miss Curdle would exclaim with glee with each strike. Elsie endured 10 long, hard years at Wormley Hall. The only thing that kept her going was the dream that one day her ma would magically appear and whisk her away. But she never did. As the girl grew up, she would invent more and more incredible stories about her. Perhaps her ma was a jungle explorer or an acrobat with a traveling circus. Even better, a lady pirate, off having adventures on the high seas. Every night, Elsie would make up bedtime stories for her fellow orphans. Over time, the girl became a magnificent storyteller. She had all the other children in the palm of her grubby little hand. Then Ma found herself in the dark, dark place. It was the belly of a huge blue whale. Ma escaped from the tribe of cannibals, which wasn't easy, as they had already gobbled up her left leg. Boom! Ma had thrown the bomb into the Thames just in time, so no one was killed. It was all in a day's work for a secret agent. The end. When the night's story was finished, the other orphans would cry out, "Another! We don't want to go to sleep yet. Please, Elsie, just one more!" One night, the children cheered so much that Elsie's story that they woke up Miss Curdle. "No stories, you nasty little," raged the woman, beating Elsie with a broomstick on every word. The pus-sodden stocking she stuffed into the girl's mouth only half muffled the screams. "Oh, oh, oh!" The beating was so severe that Elsie wasn't sure she was going to survive. Her little body was black and blue with bruises, and the girl knew she had to escape or die. Chapter 2. Monkey Feet. Elsie loved all the rats and pigeons that would find their way inside Wormley Hall. If she had any food, she would share it with them and tend to any broken wings and legs. In return, they would snuggle up to her, which made her feel less lonely. In her heart, Elsie felt a deep connection to these animals that Miss Curdle called vermin. To her, they were little creatures all alone in the world, just like her. Elsie had noticed how the rats got into the orphanage by scuttling along a leaky pipe that came down from the ceiling. One thing that set Elsie apart from her fellow orphans was her feet. Elsie didn't have ordinary feet. She had monkey feet. The advantage of having long, thick toes that could grip like fingers was that it made climbing easy peasy. So, one night, when everyone else was asleep, Elsie scaled the pipe to see where the rats scrambled in. Just as she had thought, there was a small rat-sized hole at the top of the wall. After that, every night after candles out, Elsie scaled the pipe using her monkey feet. Once at the top, she would scrape away at the brick with her fingernails. Night after night, she scraped and scraped, making the hole bigger and bigger. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Eventually, the hole was just large enough for Elsie to squeeze her tiny, underfed body through it. However, she couldn't leave Wormley Hall without saying goodbye to her 25 friends. "Wake up!" she called softly. Little eyes began to appear out of the dark. "I'm going to run away tonight. Who's coming with me?" Silence. "I said, who's coming with me?" There were murmurs of, "I'm too scared," and "Curdle will kill us," and "they'll catch us and beat us to death." The littlest little one of the lot was named Nancy. She looked up at Elsie. She was like a big sister. Nancy whispered, "Where are you going?" "I don't know," replied the girl. "Anywhere but here." "Please don't forget us." "Never." "Promise?" "I promise," said Elsie. "I'll see you all again one day. I know it." "I'm going to miss your stories," said another orphan, Felix. "Me too," added Percival. "Next time I see you, I'll tell you the greatest story of all." "Good luck, Elsie," said Nancy. "You'll always be an ear," replied Elsie, patting her chest. The girl gave one last shimmy up the pipe with her monkey feet. She squeezed herself through the hole in the wall, and with one final wiggle, she was gone. All right, my friends, that is the end of chapters 1 and 2 of Ice Monster. Now, you do have some questions and a little story to write. I love how she likes to tell stories about her mom. So one of your projects is you're going to create a story about her mom. Remember, she had talked about her mom being a pirate and a secret agent. What other ideas can you come up with for her mom? So till next time, guys, make sure you click submit and complete all your questions, and we'll see you next time for chapters 3 and 4 of Ice Monster. Have a great rest of your day. Ah, so cool.